Once again, we see an horrific act of violence and violation to a Black community. And we have to ask ourselves, what is happening in the life of an 18-year-old that he drove hundreds of miles into a very specific community and did such a horrific, violating act, and he has completely shattered our community. What I would like the Biden administration to do is I would like to see them declare that our city is in a state of emergency. I think we also need to be coordinating a plan of what will things look like a month from now? What will things look like 6 months from now? And where are we going to address the fact that social determinants of health have already been a problem in our community, hence why we only have one grocery store that's accessible to our entire community. So how are we going to address the lack of those things in our community, understanding that when those things are already lacking and now tragedy hits, you leave people with huge gaps.
It was our elders that fought so hard to get a grocery store in this community, in a community that's been suffering for decades from lack of access to fresh and healthy food options. Now I think since COVID that we're starting to pay more attention to lack of access to healthy food, but it's been something that this community has always faced. If we're not talking about the deep systemic racism that's plagued the city of Buffalo for decades, we're completely missing the point. And I'm pleading with the President of the United States to pay attention to what's happening in the east side of Buffalo.
You know, people are saying this is not Buffalo because this person didn't come from Buffalo. But to me, this is Buffalo. This is America. This is an American problem. White supremacy and systemic racism are American problems that we all have some level of complicity in because we allow it to go on. So like if we're not hearing those kind of messages coming from the top, then to me, it's not really being taken seriously. And I think President Biden needs to speak to those problems.
This has such a greater impact than just the trauma and the loss of lives. This was people's livelihood. There are people who worked at this Tops and they will not be able to go back there. There are people who rely on this grocery store and they won't be able to go back there. And the state of this community shouldn't have been like this in the first place. So we need to think about not just that this was a sadness, not just it's just a tragedy, but what are we going to do after that to make sure that the story of this community in the future is less devastating.